In this video, I'll be going over adding fractions. So now that we have three different denominators, how will we get the common denominator? We're looking for the LCM, the least common multiple. So if we list them out, we have 3, we have 9, and we have 18. So what we're looking for here is the least common multiple for all three numbers. In the previous example, we had only two fractions, so we're only looking for the LCM for two fractions. But now all three of the denominators here have to be the same in order for us to add the numerators together. So let's go down the list. Okay, are you able to spot the least common multiple for all three numbers? Hopefully you've chosen 18, because 18 is the lowest number that all three numbers can multiply to. So what we have now is we have 3 that needs to times by 6, then we have 9 that needs to times by 2, and we have 18 that needs to times by 1. So we can simply write in our fraction, for 3 we need to times by 6, the 9 need to times by 2, and 18 times by 1. And then we would do the same in the numerator. Then the final step would just be to multiply them. So 5 times 2 is 10. Here. 9 times 2, 18. 7 times 1, 18 times 1. 2 times 6, 3 times 6. And now we have common denominator for all three fractions. The last step would be to add the numerators together. So we have 10 plus 7 is 17, and then 17 plus 12 is 29. So we got 29 over 18. Now again, we have an improper fraction. So 29 divided by 18, we'll have one whole, and the remainder would be 11. So we would write a mixed number as 1, 11 over, and that's the final answer. Okay, so for something like this, 3 over 5 plus 7 over 15, the first thing that we notice is that the denominators are different in this example. So how do we make them the same? Well, we need to find the least common multiple, or abbreviated LCM, least common multiples. The goal here is to have a common denominator. And in order for us to find the least common multiple, we need to list out the multiples. So what we would do is taking the 5 and the 15. And then we're going to multiply in sequence like so. So first 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Then 5 times 3 is 15. Now for 15, we go 1. 15 times 1 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. 15 times 3 is 45. Now the least common multiple that both of these numbers have is 15. Wait, What is least common multiples? Why do you multiply 5 3 times and 15 only once? How would I know how many times to multiply? Good question. Well, least common multiples always start out from its own number and you multiply itself starting in sequence from 1, 2, 3, and so on until you reach a number that is the lowest which both numbers can multiply by. So in this example, you see that we start out by multiplying 1, and then 2, and then 3. So we ended up on 15. However, for 15, we multiply by 1, 2, and 3. However, 15 is the number that both 5 and 15 has a multiple of, and also is the lowest possible number. Does that answer your question? Ah, I see. I also have a video on this if you are interested. Oh, heck no. I mean, no thanks. Okay, moving on. Now that we have the common denominator, we know that 5 need to multiply by 3. So the 5 here needs to times by 3 here. And whenever you multiply the denominator by 3, you need to do the same in the numerator. So the 3 also need to multiply by 3, like so. Now for 15, we multiply by 1. So we can still write it here, but it's not really necessary because any number times by 1 is itself. So, but we'll do this so that we apply the same methods on both fractions. So now let's see. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. Then we have 7 times 1 is 7. And then we have 15 times 1 is 15. Now we have common denominator of 15. So the next and final step would be to add the numerator together across. So 9 plus 7 is 16. And the 15 remains the same. Now what you will notice immediately is that the numerator is greater than the denominator. 16 and 15. So this is called an improper fraction. And for improper fraction, we need to convert it to a mixed number as the final answer. So 16 over 15 is 1 whole and 1 over 15. And that's our final answer. What is an improper fraction and why do you need to convert to a mixed number? Well, any numerator greater than the denominator is an improper fraction. An improper fraction can convert to a mixed number by taking the numerator dividing by the denominator, and you will have a whole number with a remainder, if any. In this case, we have 16 over 15. So if we took 16 divided by 15 here, we will have 1 and the remainder of 1. The number 1 was the whole that we place here, 1 whole. And then the remainder of 1 is when we place in the numerator. And the divisor that we use to divide the numerator by continue to stay in the denominator. So that's how we get the mixed number of 1 and 1/15. Now, does that answer your question? Huh? You know, I also have a video on this. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, moving on. Here is another example. Now again, we are working with two unlike denominators here. So we need the LCM. Okay, so in this case we have 3 and 5. So the same process that we're going to do, we're going to multiply in sequence of 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, and for 5, now can you spot the least common multiple between 3 and 5? Hopefully you've chosen 15. Because if we were to go down the list, none of these matches until we get to 15. So that means that in our denominator portion, we are going to multiply 3 by 5 and 5 by 3. And we need to do the same in the numerator as well. And if we take 2 times 5, we have 10. And 3 times 5 is 15. Then we have 4 times 3 is 12. And 5 times 3 is 15. And now again, we have the common denominator. And all we gotta do is add the numerator together, which 10 plus 12 is 22 over 15. Now again, we have an improper fraction because the numerator is greater than the denominator. So let's take 22 divided by 15. So we'll get 1 and the remainder of 7. And so the mixed number, we will write 1. And the 7, we will put in the numerator. And over the divisor, 15. So that is our final answer. Answer would be 1 and 7 over 15. Hopefully by now you have a hang of this, as now I'll be giving a quiz problem. And the quiz problem is, okay, and feel free to pause the video while you work on this and simply play the video again when you are ready to see the answer. Okay, hopefully you look for the LCM between 5 and 6. And if you find the least common multiple to be 30, then you got the first part correct. The 30 would be the least common multiple, which is also the common denominator for both fractions. And if you look at the fraction, the denominator usually can multiply by itself. The denominator normally can multiply by the other denominator to get the common denominator. So 6 will be able to times by 5, and 5 will be able to times by 6. That will happen in all the fractions. But there are times when the number could be smaller, and the only way to figure out is you will have to list out the least common multiple in order to figure out if there are any number that could be smaller rather than multiplying by the other denominator. And in this case, the denominator is multiplying by the other denominator. So 6 times 5, because you can see that it multiplied by 5, and the 5 multiplied by 6. So we'll do the same in the numerator. And now we just need to find out what the numerators are. So 2 times 6 is 12. And 5 times 5 is 25. And then you take 12 plus 25, then you will have 37 over 30. Okay, now this again is an improper fraction. So hopefully you took 37 divided by 30. And you got 1 whole and 7 as the remainder. And that means the mixed number is 1 and 7 over 30. And if that is the answer that you've gotten, great job. You mastered this lesson. Otherwise, please feel free to go back to previous areas where you made a mistake, and you can always try this again next time. So adding fraction requires the denominator to be the same. If your problem already starts with a common denominator, that would be the easy part. All you have to do is just add the numerators together. Otherwise, if you have unlike denominators, what you want to do is find the common denominator by least common multiples. Once you find that, make sure that you multiply the same multiple as you did in the denominator in the numerator. Then the last step, we just add them together. And if it's an improper fraction, make sure you convert it to a mixed number. Hopefully this video is helpful to you, and thank you for watching.